discussing some very important things that we're sort of facing today. I think we have a lot of challenges ahead of us when we take a look at where we want to be, and definitely with the net zero sitting behind us, or sitting in front of us, I should say, and always in the back of our minds. There's different behaviors and different things that always come to the surface. And as we went through each one of your presentations, hopefully the audience could tell just how well knitted all of these discussions actually are. And so that's why I'm really excited to be able to have a bit of a discussion here with the team here to sort of talk about some of these things. And definitely through the energy transition and the pressure for social license and to get to net zero, there's a lot of things that are popping up in the conversation today. And some of that leans towards greenwashing, for instance, and that's definitely, you've sort of heard that as a thread through the conversations here. But it becomes a real thing as those pressures face us. And so, as we think about greenwashing and we think about, what we've all discussed on the panel here today, how do some of these things that we're trying to achieve through certification programs and things like that, how does that actually support or how does that allow us to overcome some of those things? And maybe Petra, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Kelly. So I believe when we really can start certifying at least a part of our products we are using throughout our industrial consumption, starting with the green products and really certify them and prove the sustainable origin, we can avoid that the certificates will trade it independently from the goods, for example. And that, from our point of view, from our understanding, really avoids the so-called greenwashing or double counting. Maybe a clear but on the other hand, we know that different regions in the world or different countries follow different regulations. Some of the countries foresee still double counting possibilities for their green certificates, some of them not, for example the EU, but I believe every step in that direction, avoiding double counting the certificates, double or three times as you mentioned as well, is the right step in the direction towards the decarbonization in here.
Yeah, absolutely. See, what are some of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, as mentioned, it could be double counting. It could be many times counting. And we know that LNG gas is competing, or is between coal or dirtier energy and renewables. And so if you are steel maker, right, then you need to register or you need to track all if you make sure you are carbon neutral, you have to make sure everything along your value chain is carbon neutral, including buying LNG. But we also see that, let's say, solar panel, like solar energy, that's clean. But those solar panels were produced in China by burning coal. Mm-hmm. So that value chain is not carbon neutral, it's not clean enough. So when we compare, LNG gas is dirtier than renewables, really, and when you really think the entire value chain, that's why we want to introduce blockchain to really register and monitor, track every single molecule of the energy we produce.
Yeah, and do we think that these systems of record will actually help continue to send that positive message around LNG as compared to others? And Paul, what do you maybe think about that?
Well, I think the measures that are being taken, the steps that we've heard about, will develop a price to them. There is a price to carbon. Mm-hmm. There's a price to green LNG, but is it a premium? Is it a discount? Is it achieved by preventing an emission? The cost of preventing an emission is probably less than the cost of paying for an emission which has been made. The way in which those commercial influences make their way into the contracts for the buying and selling, to me, I think is one of the difficulties which is ahead. Within a single jurisdiction, and I was struck by Dan's comments, and within the United States, the way in which these things are developing, but push them across different jurisdictions, push them across different political approaches, and the consistency there, I think, is more difficult. when you then go to the people doing the deals and looking to make money or save money.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just also, Paul, were talking earlier today around the blockchain concept and really the cost of blockchain as well, and looking at the energy consumption to be able to come up with a blockchain perspective. Maybe give me a few of your thoughts and share some of that discussion with the audience here today.
It was in the preparation, and I'm happy to say that I know very little about the tech, but having spent time with cryptocurrencies initially, one of the criticisms of cryptocurrency was the electricity cost of creating the blockchain, and some really startling numbers. Now, if what we're looking at here is that the saviour of verification and the gas industry is blockchain, then in looking at a holistic measure, as I think she was pointing out, yes, solar panels are great once you created them, but creating them creates CO2 emissions. So here you have the blockchain, which may be in a position to create the verification. Well, add that in. What are the emissions that go into making blockchain? I don't know the answer to that, but it struck me as a good question for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, maybe you have some more thoughts on that. And definitely the blockchain allows us to get that transparency that we're looking for. But what are your thoughts?
I think still better than the solar panel by burning coal. Yeah, but I agree. You always create a new problem by having by solving another problem. That's I don't think it's avoidable. But I think the current market is quite messy. Then we need to think a way to regulate and register, and also really calculate what is in there, and people can put in their credits. It's like a la carte menu.
Mm-hmm.
You produce something, then you compensate. Then you have a bank of, let's say, 1,000 certificates in that system. You take one, you take two. Then once you take it, it can't be used the second time.
Yeah.
Then we can probably use solar to produce the power for the blockchain.
Absolutely. So Dan, you were talking about, sort of the human error and sort of taking a look at the decarbonization right from when the molecule kind of comes out of the ground. And it, again, feeds into the entire conversation that we've been having here. And as we go through to get that certification process, is it taking a look at it from a snapshot in time or real time? And again, in comes human error as you're working around and working with the maintenance programs. So what are some of your thoughts around how do we get a better picture and a better idea around those things?
Well, that goes to where the companies have to start taking that first step, establishing their digital cornerstone and creating a digital backbone, or like we like to call smart digital reality, that quantifies and tracks how that molecule comes out of the well. Because down the road, whether it's blockchain or whatever mechanism that we're going to certify green LNG, you're not really going to track that molecule all the way to the ship. It's going to be a molecule that comes out of that well, goes into a gathering system, some midstream company that's going to sell a bunch of molecules to the LNG exporter, and it's going to be done on a statistical basis. So for that, and Paul can probably get off into the complexities of doing the contracts for going from from the wellhead down to the boat. But up at the wellhead, it has to start with digitalizing and starting a digital transformation on your operations.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, I don't know, maybe you want to jump in on what Dan was saying.
The technology of allocation agreements and attribution agreements is there. There are complex agreements which have sustained the natural gas business. But there you're looking at a very different order of those things, and you're moving away from the contracts as we know them and moving more towards digital inputs, digital measurements, and who knows, maybe fewer lawyers. What did I say?
Yeah, and there is that reality. I mean, it's not a single producer that feeds the LNG market, right? It's usually a collection of producers sending their product down the line to then get us into being able to export into the LNG market, right? So it's not as easy just tracking one producer. There's usually many producers, and see, as you were saying, even if we take a look at all the people that are exporting right now, I can't remember the number, 15 different countries, right? So how do we keep track of all of that? And so I think that goes into the next piece of, with, as we take a look globally, with all of the requirements coming from different countries and different programs going in, how can some of these things that we've been talking about today support that? And are they really ready? Are we ready to the point to be able to ensure that we get that certification of our product? Petra, maybe you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you. So the very important thing is here that no one or no company alone can prove the sustainability or can prove the greenness, whether it is LNG, whether it is carbon credits, carbon monoxide, or whether it is green products. There has to be a co-development, a co-creation or cooperation between the different companies, and every company really, or every partner, brings his competency. Is it, for example, Restart, for example, with the knowledge about how blockchain can help overcome the fraud in CO2 trading, for example? Let it be your company with LNG certification, green certification. Let it be the technology or the competence you provide us, or let it be us proving for or building, for example, the highway, so to say, for any certification, and then partnering with certified bodies which are accredited, which are licensed, so to say, to use the governmental approved schemes to certify for the partners in the supply chain, the politics supply chain, for example. And I strongly believe that all together we can overcome them and we can verify and the governmental requirements and put them into action.
Yeah, for sure. And Paul, maybe coming back to some of the contracts that you were talking about too, and the impact that, you know, the certification process has on that, for the benefit, for the worse. What are your final thoughts on that?
The transition is across the whole sector, and the transition of contracts. At the moment, all of these gas flows, movements, shipments are underpinned by contracts that exist. Some have existed for decades. They're not well suited to what's moving. Mm-hmm. They're just not. How they're going to move, how they're going to make their transition is a challenge for the people who are parties to those contracts. And traditionally, people have looked at their positions and whether they're in the money or out of the money, and they've then thought about it. I can't help thinking that there's not going to be time to be doing that, and that it's going to be more a case of looking at your interests, recognising how things have shifted, valuing the relationships that you have under these contracts, and then looking at how to adapt them to make the most of the future, rather than looking at where you came from in another set of circumstances a long time ago.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're at time for today, so I'll stop the questioning there. Thank you so much to our panelists for joining us, and thank you all for coming and being here with us this afternoon. Thank you.